feel like every placement I went on, all of the routines and things were already in place. You have to create your own routines for your own classroom. Something that I'm so glad that I made is a visual timetable. I love to use task boards. You need to explicitly set out what it is you are looking for. Getting to know you lessons that I have tried and tested. What do you think my favourite emoji is? My favourite emoji is of course the poop emoji. You ask people to pick a colour and I usually have a little key that I put up on the board. Hi everyone, it is Miss Ross here. Today I'm here with a video that I really wish I had when I started my NQT year. This time 2 years ago I was starting to feel those little nervous butterflies in my tummy. It was the summer before my probation year. I was so excited to have my very first class and I was also terrified. Over the next few weeks I am planning on filming and releasing a series of videos with lots of tips and advice for NQTs. If you want to keep updated on that, then make sure you follow me on my teacher Instagram, which is Miss Ross Teach. I remember the feeling well. I remember all of the questions that I had that I wish someone had been able to answer for me, so hopefully these videos will put your mind at ease. I can't speak for everyone, but based on my university experience, I never actually was able to complete a placement in the first term of the school year, so that was something I'd never experienced before. I feel like every placement I went on, I was seeing like the tail end of the school year when all of the routines and things were already in place. So something that I was really nervous about was establishing those routines, building those relationships with my pupils and making a positive start to the school year. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right into my tips and advice for how to survive the first day of school as a teacher. I do have some notes just to keep me right on the sort of things I want to say. So starting with my first piece of advice for that first week of school, and that is to take things slow. On that first day back, we have all had a long break away from school. We're all struggling to get back into that routine again. We're all feeling that little bit excited and that little bit nervous. And I think it's really important to think about that. You know, pupils might not have been in the same classroom the previous year, so it might be, you know, a new cohort that they're experiencing, a new classroom environment. Obviously you will be new to the school. Definitely think about things from their perspective as well. You know, don't have them sitting down to do a maths assessment on the very first morning, the first day back. Don't worry about rushing into things as soon as your pupils are in the classroom. Take your time, give yourself some breathing room and just enjoy the experience. I would definitely say on that first morning, to kind of ease the tensions when your pupils first come into the room, to have a little keep busy task on the tables. It's up to you whether you want to assign seats on the first day of school. I would definitely say that that allows you to be in control from the very start. You do want to try and kind of avoid any behaviour issues on the first day of school, and if you've had a chance to speak to their previous teacher or if any transition notes have been passed on, then you know that might be an opportunity just to ease any tensions on the first day and make sure that you're in control. But then of course you might just want to see how things go and allow your pupils to choose their seats, but have a really light activity for them to do once they come into the room. One of my tried and tested activities that I have used in just about every stage that I've worked in the primary school is a word search. I'll just go onto Google and find a word search maker website and print out a word search with myself and all of the pupils' names. They always get so excited about trying to find their own name and all of their friends' names, and of course there's always a prize for who can find my name first. I think that's a nice little bit of a distraction from all of the nerves once they come into the room, and it gives you a chance to go around and say hello to some of the pupils and kind of take a moment for yourself so that all eyes aren't on you. There might be some pupils that are running a little bit late on the morning, especially on that first morning back at school, so you know you might want to give them a wee 10-15 minutes to settle in. They might not have seen all of their classmates for a good while over the summer, so you've got to give them a chance to get all of those chatters out of the way and just relax into things. Which kind of leads on to my next tip. I'm sorry if this is a really obvious one, but don't be afraid to talk to your pupils. Definitely make sure throughout that first morning that you make time to speak to pupils individually and get to know them. Try and put some faces to names. Don't be afraid to spend some time as a class going round the room asking pupils if they had a nice summer break, if they want to share anything or ask anything. Be careful because there are always going to be those pupils that want to just share absolutely everything they did over their summer break, so it's maybe best to ask them to share their favourite thing that happened or one thing that they really enjoyed. Again, another activity that I have had lots of success with is by using Smarties or M&Ms. I've also seen it done with Skittles, and you just have a big bowl of sweeties and you ask people to pick a colour, and I usually have a little key that I put up on the board, and depending on the colour that they choose, you can ask them a question for them to answer. Introducing some sweets into the mix will definitely motivate your pupils to share a little bit more with you. Everyone loves sweets, so that is always a really nice activity to do. Something else I've tried in the past was something that I saw on Twinkle, which is blether stations. You might want to split pupils into little groups. This could be done on the floor or at tables, I suppose, and I have given each group a little cue card with a question. You can kind of play it by ear. I like to give pupils a few minutes at each station discussing that question. It just gives them a chance to get all of those blethers out. I'll try and put some of the resources that I've used up on the screen to give you a better idea. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head there was questions like, you know, my favourite thing I ate over the holidays, someone that I saw over the holidays. Having worked in a few schools in areas of high deprivation, I would also point out, just to make sure you're being sensitive about the types of questions that you're asking your pupils. You can't always assume that pupils have been away on a holiday abroad, but just make sure your questions are inclusive of all of the learners in your classroom, and make sure that they all have an opportunity to share something or ask a question. It's nice for every pupil to go home after that first day to feel that they've been included. My next tip is absolutely essential to make sure you start off on the right foot at the very beginning of the school year, and that is to make sure that you are very clear on your expectations from the start. What my advice would be is to turn up on the first day of school with some golden rules that you can introduce to your pupils. Keep it really simple. Allow some time to get to know your learners before you figure out what behaviour management system is going to work best for them. I think it can be really easy to assume that pupils know what is expected of them without having to kind of explicitly explain those things, but it's so important to point out that, you know, pupils may have had lots of different teachers so far. Every teacher has a different style, different techniques, so you need to be extremely clear about what it is you expect. I would definitely recommend that you have a real think about what sort of things you expect in your classroom before that first day of school. So the types of things that I would always be expecting from learners in my classroom are things like good manners, showing respect to each other and to the items in the classroom, good listening, being kind, and be really clear about these golden rules with your pupils. And if you do see someone that is, you know, following that expectation, then make sure you reward them and recognise them for that. A technique that I've seen used that I think would be brilliant, especially during those first few weeks of school, is the use of a wall of fame, or a proud cloud, sometimes I've seen them called. If you have watched my behaviour management video, then I talked about having a Twitter wall of fame when I was teaching slightly older pupils, and they had the opportunity to have a positive tweet written about them that I would stick up on the wall. I've seen it done so many different ways before. I'll try and kind of post some pictures I've seen on Pinterest and things like that to give you some ideas. Definitely try over those first few days to give every pupil, you know, a chance to be rewarded and, you know, have some positive praise aimed towards them. It's all about, you know, looking for those positive moments throughout the day. Once you do start moving down that kind of negative path, I think it can be really difficult to rebuild that relationship again. So you want to try and build that relationship with all of the pupils in your class and maintain that kind of positive ethos very early on. My next tip is routines. I think this one can be so hard when you're brand new in a school, because even you're not adjusted to the routine of a new environment. But I think one of my key points is that you have to create your own routines for your own classroom, and, you know, you are in control of your own classroom environment. Again, I feel like I've been saying this a lot so far in the video, but be really clear of your expectations. It sounds silly, but actually have the conversation with pupils. It doesn't matter what age they are. You need to explicitly set out what it is you are looking for. And that's going to involve a little bit of kind of pre-thought on your part about what it is you're actually expecting. So first of all, have a think about how you want your classroom to run on the day-to-day. How do you want pupils to enter your classroom? Do you want them to take out a book and read silently for the first 15 minutes of the day? Are they expected to self-register? I've seen this done with little pegs and things like that. Do you have a little kind of health and well-being check-in? A lot of classrooms will have a soft start in the morning, or maybe you'll have like a little morning challenge up on the board that you expect pupils to take out a whiteboard and complete. These are the sorts of things that you're actually going to have to explain to pupils so that they understand what is expected of them. And don't be afraid to spend a lot of time over that first week just going over these routines and expectations, because it does take time to kind of train your pupils to be able to do these things. Something that I'm so glad that I made, that I have used every day within my classroom since my probation year, is a visual timetable. I'll try and pop up a little photo of mine just now while I'm talking you through it. But I don't just use this as a pretty display to have in my classroom. I make sure, you know, at the start of every day while I'm saying good morning to my pupils, to sit them down and explain what we are doing that day. I definitely think that by using this has supported learners with a variety of needs in my classroom, and it really helps to ease those transitions and let them know what to expect from their day. Try and make sure that you plan for every possible outcome and that you have an answer for everything, because on those first few days pupils are going to have a lot of questions about how things are going to work. Think about your expectations for when pupils need to use the toilet. How do you expect them to line up at the start of the day? What are your expectations for kind of tidy up time and things like that? Be consistent. You really want to try and train your pupils to be as independent as possible, as early on as possible, but again, these things do take a lot of time to develop. Pupils do really enjoy having a routine and kind of knowing what to expect when they enter your classroom. Something that I get asked about a lot is the kind of getting to know you lessons that I have tried and tested with pupils in the past. So my favourite way to get to know my class for the first time is by using the quiz of Miss Ross, which is a quiz that I've made up all about myself. Especially if you are a new member of staff to the school, then this is a really good one to use because pupils probably don't know very much about you, and it's interesting to see the kind of assumptions that they have about you. So I do have a little multiple choice quiz that I use that has lots of different things about me, and it gives pupils an opportunity to have a guess what they think, and that's always really good fun. They always love getting involved in that. I have used this with the youngest children in the primary school and the oldest. Obviously sometimes I've adapted the kinds of things I'm talking about. For example, I like to ask them, you know, what do you think my favourite emoji is, and I'll usually put up a few different options and they find that really funny. Sometimes I'll bring a few props and photos with me as well so that I can explain some of my answers. My favourite emoji is of course the poop emoji. Things like my favourite animal, my favourite Avenger, what is my favourite Pokemon, you know, trying to find those common interests with your learners and make that connection with them. And once the pupils have had a chance to guess what they think the answers are for the questions about me, I'll usually kind of reverse it and ask them the same questions and give them a chance to share some things if they want to. So that is a really fun little whole class activity I usually like to start off with at the very beginning, and then it's nice to kind of follow that up with a little task. Pupils can maybe go and fill out a worksheet about themselves. Something else that is always a success is bringing Miss Ross's bag of stuff. I just have this really big tote bag. It does in fact say Miss Ross's teacher stuff on it. Again, this is something that I've used with every stage of the primary school. I like to put lots of different objects in it and let pupils guess about the types of things I'm interested in. For example, I love to bake, so I'll put in a wooden spoon. I love to travel, so I'll put in my passport, and just lots of different random objects that help pupils get to know a little bit more about me. And then something really nice that you can do as a follow-up for that activity is to print out, I think I've printed it like A3 before, a template of a bag for pupils to fill their own bag, and they can draw or write things inside it that tell me about them. Really make that effort to chat to all of your learners and ask questions about their lives and just show an interest in them. I think that is, you know, one of the best ways to build positive relationships with them. And you know, over time, I think it only took me a few days before I knew most of the names of pupils in my class. Those activities have always been a huge success with my pupils, and I would definitely recommend giving them a try as well. Something that I really panicked about for my first day of school was how much to plan. I would definitely say from my experience to make sure you thoroughly plan the first day. You know, consider how long the different activities you've planned may take, and make sure that you have lots of things up your sleeve as little time fillers just in case, you know, your timings are slightly off. Best case scenario is that your activities take longer than expected, and like me, you know, you'd over-planned stuff, so there were lots of things actually you didn't even need to use. Something I definitely worried about was how quickly do we dive into the curriculum? When does the normal teaching start? And when I get asked that, what I usually say is that every day is a learning day, and even on that first day of school, even though it's not really a normal day, you are teaching your pupils so many things. You know, you're teaching them about your expectations and you're teaching them routines. You know, there is a lot going on those first few days of school. But in terms of, you know, when should you dive into, you know, start teaching your usual literacy and numeracy lessons and really get the ball rolling, I would definitely say don't be afraid to start introducing, you know, literacy and numeracy on those first few days of school, but try and keep it light. You know, maybe do some active literacy or some maths challenges just to get a feel for their abilities, something that's quite light-hearted and doesn't feel like they're doing textbook work. There are so many different activities online, especially if you type in for the first week back at school. You know, there's lots of kind of summer themed maths myths, code breakers and things like that. Something that really helped me find a focus for that first week or two of school was to use a kind of class novel or a short story as a stimulus for lots of different lessons. I would say based on my experience that it is good for this to have a kind of health and well-being focus. I've seen lots of teachers use the kind of bucket filler story where you try and fill everyone's bucket each day, and they've done lots of kind of craft and literacy activities around that. Try and find something which will link to, you know, a message or to your classroom expectations. With my very first class, we read a chapter from David Walliams' World's Worst Teachers, which pupils really enjoyed because it is a pretty funny book. And through that we talked about, you know, what makes a good teacher, what is it that's so awful about these world's worst teachers, and from that we discussed what makes a good pupil. And through that we were able to kind of build our classroom rules and talk about those expectations for our classroom. Again, that's going to depend on, you know, the ages of the pupils that you're working with, so try and find something that's going to be appropriate for them. Try and start off by teaching something that you're confident in and that you really enjoy teaching, and once you've had a chance to kind of settle in and get a feel for your pupils, then you'll be able to start thinking about what your weekly plan is going to look like in the longer term. I'm just going to re-emphasise here what I said as my very first tip, but don't be afraid to take it slow. Include lots of brain breaks, you know, take your pupils outside. There is a whole school year ahead of you, so don't be worrying too much about time for that very first week of school. Just make sure you spend that time having fun and getting to know your pupils. Something that is always really nice to do is like a little time capsule that pupils can look back on after they've completed their year. You might want to do some writing about their goals for the year ahead. If you're feeling brave, maybe try and do an art activity and, you know, get some pupil work up on your walls. But I would definitely say the sooner that you can get your pupils into a routine, the better. You've got to be careful because you don't want to like overstimulate your pupils by doing too many fun and exciting activities. You do want to try and get them into that routine, so definitely try and keep a balance throughout the day of some nice calm activities, and, you know, give them an opportunity to have some fun and play some games with their new teacher too. So my next tip is to make sure you gather as much information as possible. I have to admit that in those first few days of school as a probationer, I was feeling really overwhelmed. The whole thing just passed in a blur. While you're doing a lot of these activities, whether it is just, you know, having a bit of circle time with your class or, you know, playing some games with them, you will be able to start putting faces to names and getting to know your pupils' ability. In that first week, you definitely want to be thinking about assessments that you can be doing with your learners in order to get a feel for where they are with their learning. They could be writing a postcard about something that they did over the summer, and that will allow you to see their writing ability. You might want to do a little mental math check-up with them. Are you going to do a spelling assessment? Maybe you want to do a times tables challenge. Obviously, I was coming from, you know, being on placement where pupils were already established in their groupings and things like that. It was really tricky to make those decisions for myself as a probationer with my own set of learners. So make sure that you gather all of the evidence that you need in order to make these decisions so you can do so confidently. I would definitely recommend, you know, if you do have a little notepad, is keeping notes on some of your pupils, choosing focus groups of learners, and through doing that, you know, you'll be able to develop your groupings in kind of correspondence with my visual timetable for my class. I love to use task boards to help organise my pupils. This is just really helpful because it lets pupils know, you know, expectations of the task that they should be completing. Pupils are aware of the early finisher tasks. There's always an extension that could be completed or a follow-up task. And my final tip is just introduce yourself and get to know the people that are going to be supporting you to get through this year. I would definitely recommend introducing yourself to some of the key people in the school, like the office staff, the catering staff, and the school janitor, because those people are going to be essential in supporting you to get through your NQT year. Something that I really struggled with was just having so many questions and worrying about bombarding other members of staff with my questions. Try to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. Prioritise the types of questions that you want to ask. I found it really helpful to write absolutely everything down in my notepad. I had an ongoing list of questions which I would like cross off, and remember that there is no question that is too small. You know, can you help me photocopy this? Where do I find this? You are new to the school, so there's no expectation for you to walk in and, you know, be able to do everything. This year is going to be a huge learning curve, so go easy on yourself. I honestly I've said this a million times, would not have been able to get through my probation year if I didn't have such positive relationships with my colleagues who really helped me through it. Definitely make sure you're reaching out to other people in your position, especially if, like me, you know, you're on your own in your school. One of the kind of annoying things, I guess, about the probation year is that no one's experience is ever going to be the same. Every school is different, every classroom is different. A lot of the advice I've given you is obviously based on my experience. Some schools will give you a lot more freedom than others. It's really just going to depend. That is all of the tips and advice that I have for you today. But please feel free, if you've got any more questions that you want to ask me, to comment down below. I do always try my best to reply in the comment section. I'm always available on my Instagram if you want to pop me a little DM, and I'll try and go into a little bit more detail if there's something specific that you want to know about. I really hope that you found this video helpful, and I wish you the best of luck for a new school year. I will see you all in my next video. Bye!